Okay, so we are live now. Hope everyone is doing good tonight. And tonight with us we have Eduardo, who is currently taking a doctor's degree in linguistic studies and applied linguistics, focusing on language proficiency testing. He teaches in Rio de Janeiro at a federal institute, and he has got experience in applied linguistic, foreign language studies, and testing. He works with English for specific purposes, designing of materials for online and face-to-face courses, digital technologies, distance learning, evaluation, and testing. So, well, great to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Thiago.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. It's very nice to be here. I would like to thank Natalia and all the BrELT members for this invitation. I'm very, very happy. And this is my first time on a webinar. So I hope you enjoy my presentation and find some useful information. So let's share some of the things I've been doing, and let me see here, because I need to take the time to learn it better. Okay. Oops. I'm gonna share my screen with you, and oops. Can you see the presentation, guys? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay, so gonna do it again. Okay, so my presentation is about language testing. Some theories and practices concerning language testing. My name is Eduardo, indeed is William Eduardo, right? I am a teacher at UFRJ and also a PhD student at Unesp, São José do Rio Preto. Okay, so the first thing we have to bear in mind when we are talking about language testing is to see how different or how complementary language testing can be with another area, which is assessment. In a way, they both work together, right? But before I go any further, please, if you have questions, let me know. Can interrupt anytime you need, because sometimes language testing can be kind of confusing or complex in a way, because language testing is something new for many people. Yeah, and when I started working on language testing, I knew very little about it, and I decided to study very hard and get to know most of the things. In fact, there aren't many works, there isn't much research about it. Yeah, at least here in Brazil, but there's a lot of research out there. And we have to differentiate these views of language testing and assessment, because some people believe they are the same thing, and they aren't. They are complementary. When we are talking about language testing, we have to think about test design. Okay, how we create tests, how we create the instruments to measure a specific kind of knowledge, or how to test, how to measure your knowledge in a specific area or skill. Yeah. So to make it clearer for you, I decided to bring this picture. Can you see it? Okay, raise your hands if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes, we can. That's great.
Okay, good. Because I don't have control over these things here. Anyway, but then when I decided to bring this picture, I was thinking about a good example on how to explain measurement, assessment, and evaluation. These three words are sometimes problematic for many teachers. In fact, what I'm trying to do here is um, to bring some knowledge of language testing and assessment literacy for you. Yeah, because many teachers don't know how to deal with assessment and testing, and sometimes they come up with many questions. And my God, what's measurement? What's assessment? What's evaluation? Is evaluation the same thing as assessment? Is assessment the same thing as testing? So this is what I can tell you. Suppose, this is me, okay? I'm not that fat, but suppose that I am 120 kilograms fatter. If I tell you 120, I would be talking about what? I would be talking about measurement. But then for a person of my height and my age, 120 is too much. So what would be the, not the perfect, but the average weight for a person who is 1 meter 18 centimeters tall? Well, approximately 90 kilograms. So if we consider this as a reference, as a kind of criterion for the weight I need, so we would be talking about assessment. And since I'm not, I'm not this weight, I'm not. If I don't have 90 kilos now, if I am a bit fatter, I'm overweight. So the conclusion I get is I'm overweight. So this is what I can evaluate. So if we bear this example in mind, we can assume that measurement refers to the process by which the attributes of dimensions of something are determined. So, in fact, what I'm saying is how much you know about a given topic. We are talking about numbers. We are talking about statistics, not about quantity, right? So this is measurement. Assessment has to do with the process of gathering information in order to monitor progress and make educational decisions if necessary. So if we consider the necessary criteria for me to be less fat, to be better, I'm thinking about assessment. Yeah. Many people also believe that assessment has to do with alternative methods like observations, interviews, portfolios, and so on. And evaluation is making judgments based on criteria and evidence. I mean, how good, useful, or successful something or someone is. Okay? Right? Well, it's also after this, these terms, we are going to move to a more specific part about the history, a brief history of language testing. If we consider when language tests began, I mean, we have been tested all over history. We've been doing this for, we have always been doing this. But if we want to set up a date, we could go back to the 50s. Which was an era of behaviorism and special attention to contrastive analysis. So at that time, people believed that we had to test the knowledge of phonology, of grammar, of lexis, and compare this knowledge. For example, the knowledge of English, the English grammar, phonetics, phonology, and vocabulary, and contrast it with Portuguese. So if we do it, if we can see the difference, notice how different one system is from the other, we can test and have a final evaluation of what your knowledge is, right? And when we are, but later on, when in the 70s and 80s, we have the beginning of the communicative approaches, and many communicative theories were widely accepted. And we had before we had this view of discrete point testing. I mean, testing elements of language, which are grammar, phonology, and lexis. Now we have a more integrative approach to testing. That means we should not worry about all those elements separately. We have to integrate them in language in use. So when it comes to assess learners' communicative competence, we have to take into consideration that grammar, vocabulary, and phonology are elements that belong to a broader scope. Yeah. And today we have, a different view of language testing, a more social cognitive, where we consider other factors, also the way people use language in different contexts for different purposes. And for this reason, test designers are trying to create tests as authentic as possible. And this authenticity, this authenticity is the prerequisite for the creation of very valid instruments that simulate real-world interaction. So we have to bring to seeing that nowadays tests should be as realistic as possible. Okay, and in communicative language testing, as I told you, there is this quest for authenticity on the part of designers. And another very interesting point is the importance of strategic competence. Yeah. So let me see here. Yeah. Okay. Well, so nowadays, when we are preparing our students, we're preparing candidates to take an international test, an international exam, as the TOEFL and Cambridge exam and so on. We have to bear in mind that they have to be very strategic. They have to know how to cope with the parts of the test, the different tasks in the test, right? And okay, all right. And besides having this view of strategies, we also have to create criteria to see if a test is a really good test, if it is a genuine test. Yeah, these 5 criteria are practicality, reliability, validity, authenticity, and washback. Right? That we're going to just talk about in a moment. Okay, just let me find something here. Okay. Okay. Right. Well, when we're talking about these 5 criteria, the first one, practicality, we would think, what's a practical test? Yeah, a practical test is not excessively expensive, stays with appropriate time constraints, is relatively easy to administer, and it has a scoring evaluation procedure that is specific and time efficient. Right? That means that when you say that it's not expensive, we know that most international tests are expensive. Most of them, I think it costs around 500 reais now, and but a test should be also practical, to be with to stay within appropriate time constraints. I mean, the students should be able to complete the test reasonably within the set time frame. Yeah, and it's relatively easy to administer because the test should be should be it's relatively easy to administer. Okay, we have to consider the how easy we can use the test in our school, right? If the school has the necessary conditions to cope with this task of having a sufficient having enough students to wow. Okay, guys, sorry here. I'm kind of lost. Just let me find where I am. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, sometimes I'm trying to find my notes here to say the right things.
Don't you worry, we can wait. It's been very, very cool since until now.
Okay. Okay, so in this case, our practical test should all materials and equipment should be ready. Yeah. Uh, Another thing, has a scoring evaluation procedure that's specific and time efficient. That means the scoring evaluation system should be feasible in the teacher's time frame. And the methods for reporting results should be determined in advance. Yeah, this is the first thing. Yeah. The second one is reliability. Yeah, a reliable test is consistent and dependable. The issue of reliability of a test may be best addressed by, by considering a number of factors that may contribute to the unreliability of a test. That means we have to consider certain the possibilities of fluctuations. That is, we have to think about the students, we have to think about the scoring, we have to think about the test administration, and the test itself, right? What do I mean student reliability? Yeah, we have to check whether the students are ill, if they had a bad day, if they are very anxious, if they have some kind of physical or psychological problem at that moment. So we have to observe in order not to deviate from the true score. Yeah. And we also have to consider how wise this student is, what kind of strategy he is using in order to conclude, yeah, in order to take the test, right? If he knows the test, if he's able to handle the test, yeah, the problems that he might find during the test, yeah. We also have to take into account that the rater, yeah, is a human being, and when he scores a test, he must use not only his knowledge, but all his experience, his attention, and avoid, yeah, preconceived ideas and I mean a biased view that may enter into this scoring process. And also observe whether this the student is nervous or if he has some kind of problem when he's taking the test. Yeah, and most of the time he has to rely on the scoring instrument and the rating scale. He has to follow as close as possible to the rating scale. We also have to take into account that the test administration is important because I mean, if we are taking a test in a place where there is a lot of noise, street noise, or if the copy of the test is not good, if the light is poor, and the desks and chairs are not comfortable, so this would somehow be problematic for the candidate. And as I told you, the test reliability. Yeah, the test has to be very clear. Yeah, and has to be timed. We have to know how to discriminate students who performed well and students who did not perform well during that time limit. And one thing that I've noticed as a rater of tests is that we have to pay attention to poorly written test items, because most tests, when they are written, they have to be very specific. They have to be very clear. Instructions and the directions have to be very clear. And if they are not a source of reliability, the students might fail the test. There is that example of find X in a question, in an item, and then the student goes with an arrow and says, "Oh, here it is." So this is a very good example of a bad item, a poorly written item for a test. Yeah. The other aspect is validity. Yeah, validity refers to the extent to which the test measures what it claims to measure. Basically, is what construct validity is all about. If does the test measure what it's supposed to measure? Okay, but at the same time, we have to see if the content, what is in the test, is what is the kind of content the student has already studied, has already seen, right? So, we cannot use a test using, for example, if we had to about past situations, and if we cover this in a test, and if the student hasn't seen this, he might fail. So the test is invalid. And also, the student must understand that's a test, and the test is clear. It's possible to answer a specific question in the test. So when the student recognizes that, oh, this test looks a real test, so we are talking about face validity. Yeah, right. Another aspect, as I have already mentioned this aspect before, authenticity. In an authentic test, the language is as natural as possible. Items are as contextualized as possible. Topics and situations are interesting, enjoyable, and or humorous, and some are thematic. Texts represent real-world tasks. That means, well, when we are creating a test, an authentic test, we have to consider, for example, in a reading test, we have a reading passage. So is this reading passage that we selected is it from a real world source? And this, when the test taker see this reading passage, is he likely to or to see that, okay, this is a text I would find in a newspaper, in a magazine, or any kind of real life genre. Yeah, if it were a listening comprehension task, we have to consider if that listening passage has hesitations, if there is interruptions, as if it were in a real conversation, in a real life situation. And more is more. I see that more and more tests now offer items that are episodic. What do I mean by episodic? They are sequenced in a way that it has meaningful units, paragraphs, or stories. So most tests are thematic now. They are about a specific topic, and all the tests carry that topic into consideration. So that's an authentic test. Also important is the notion of washback. What's the washback? Washback includes the effects of a test on teaching and learning prior to the test itself, that is, on preparation for the test. In fact, when we are talking about the effects of a test, we have to consider two different things. One of them is washback, the other is the impact. The impact, the effects of the impact have more social, let's say, they have more, they have the impact on social issues. For example, I talked to you about the Ciências Sem Fronteiras. When we are talking about Ciências Sem Fronteiras, you know that many students need to take the TOEFL to study abroad. Yeah. What happened? Many of them failed. Yeah. They didn't get a good grade to continue studying, and some of them had to come back. Well, what does it mean? That our educational system doesn't give the right value to English language learning. Yeah. So the social issue here is how important is it to learn a foreign language like English. So the results of the test show that something must be done. Yeah. And we have to think about, policies to change this reality in our country. The washback is a bit more specific. How specific is it? Because when we are talking about the results of a test a student has taken, and for example, in a university, the student has taken a test and he passed or failed, or a student who finishes the university, the undergraduate course, but is not able to speak English, to use English, to work as a teacher. So what should we do? We should somehow to think about instruments, for example, a test, to reconsider, to evaluate, yeah, the role of our school curriculum, of our course curriculum, yeah, and to see how we can change this curriculum in order to make these students, able to become proficient users of English. For example, how to make them better teachers of English. Yeah. So the washback has a more immediate effect on the school curriculum. Yeah. On the university course curriculum and so on. Yeah. And this, when we are talking about these tests, the different tests, and I think that we have to stress the importance of taking a foreign language test. I remember the first time I took a test was when I was 18 or 19 years old. My first experience with the FC. At the time, I didn't know what the FC was. People told me that I had to do it, and I did it. And I was very surprised when I saw that many people prepared themselves for the test, and I didn't study anything. And that it would be very important as a language teacher to have the certificates, and for my career, but at the same time for my development as a language user, right? As a user of a foreign language. And as a teacher, we have to find ways to progress and to develop ourselves I remember Igor Cavalcanti in his talk about can we can we can we speak about our English, something like this. It was in the last BrELT chat, no, the BrELT webinar. He talked about the how he claimed that many teachers do not know they need to develop themselves to grow as teachers, as professionals, and sometimes we have to stop and think, my gosh, we have do I speak English well? Am I proficient enough to become a teacher? And in fact, that many people don't know that they have to use English. I don't mean that we have to use English all the time, but we have to know how to how to cope with different situations. Sometimes we have teachers who work at schools who do not worry to speak English fluently, and they many of them tell me that okay, I don't know, I don't need English so much because my students have classes in Portuguese. If I were in a language school, I would probably need to be more proficient, but this is not the case. Yeah, and we have to be as proficient as possible. Yes, and that's why it's important to consider these different tests from Cambridge, from Michigan, the TOEFL, right? But there are also other tests, very specific tests. For example, the Appt, which is a test for air traffic controllers. Yeah, and there are also tests. Most tests are now computer-based tests. We can take it uh, on the computer, so you have to schedule a day to take the test. And I think you all know these tests here, don't you? Yeah? Can you hear me?
We have our mics off. That's why I didn't hear we going like, yay, we have. But
I know.
people listen.
The feeling, my feeling is that I'm crazy. I'm talking to myself.
It is a bit weird.
I,
I
in my
know. I'm sorry for that.
stream of consciousness.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you know this exam here, Appt. Yeah, Appt is what I'm gonna talk about now. Yeah, the Appt exam stands for Exame de Proficiência para Professores de Línguas Estrangeiras. The Appt is an examination designed to assess EFL teachers and teachers to be's competence in the target language for teaching purposes. This is my research project. I mean, I belong to a research group, and we are developing a test for language teachers, in my case, English language teachers, because I believe that something must be done. Yeah, we have to find ways to control the quality of our teachers. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe something is not correct, or maybe someone doesn't like this idea. But I think that we have to stop and think about our reality. Teachers don't speak English. And now we see that we have to do something to change this reality. We have, and what we can do is to create an exam, a specific exam to measure the teacher's competence, in the target language. Yeah. So the Appt, as you can see, just a minute. Well, let me find here this. Okay. Okay, and as you know, there are different types of international exams which measure the candidate's proficiency, but we have to remember that only a few of these exams and tests include language for the teacher. For example, we have the TKT. Yeah, and none of them has been developed especially to assess the linguistic proficiency of language teachers with a focus on oral and written production. And when we decided to work on the Apple exam, we were thinking about creating an exam that would be genuinely Brazilian and that would assess the linguistic proficiency of language teachers and who teach or who will teach in our country. Yeah. So the Apple assesses the four skills, right? And we understand that teachers should understand and produce a foreign language in its oral and written modalities, and we see that something must be done, right? And with the first version, when we created the first version, which was our first attempt to use this test, we created a prototype version that was developed in paper and pencil format. And now we have a new version, a computer-based test, and that's more flexible. Yeah, we can schedule the day of the test, and it also has reliable scores. And there's a version here that I'm going to show you. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the examination. This is the website, www.applebrasil.org. Yeah, I'm going to show you samples of the written test and the oral test. This is the second version of the test. There is a third version that we have just finished. Yeah, we just prepared the new version of the test. And for you to see the parts of the test, we have this first part, which is the written test. We have some directions for the candidate, yeah, and this is the oral test with, we have the first part. We ask them to introduce themselves, and then we move to a second part of listening comprehension, and the third part, which is which concerns the way teachers speak. I mean, how they use teachers' language, meta language, right, to explain some grammatical items, right? If he is able to do it, to explain something to their students, and we have the written test, right? Here we have reading comprehension, right? And they have to find 5 mistakes in the passages and correct those mistakes, explain why they are right or wrong. I mean, what they are wrong, and write an essay about the topic. Okay. And I think that's it. Yeah. Do you have any questions?
Let's see if we have questions. Anyone?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You can type your question on the chat box.
Okay. Let me.
People, Jose is here complimenting on the presentation. People, Jose, Thiago, love the fact that your test, the Apple is Brazilian, so something that has been developed here.
Yeah. So it's a Brazilian test for Brazilian teachers.
Right.
I have a question, Will.
Yes.
Where can we take this test, the Apple?
Yeah, we are going to start the applications this year again in universities. We are contacting some universities, UNB, Unesp, UERJ, and probably if I can have, I'm gonna have a conversation with someone from UFRJ, right? And probably we are going to have this new version in September or October.
In order to take the test, I have to be a student from one of these universities, or the university will just apply the test and anyone can take?
Yeah, first we need to use the test with the students from these universities. But the second the second application will be next year, probably teachers from which are not, I mean, teachers who are not students from the university will be able to do.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Anyone else got questions?
Well, if you can, could you stop sharing your screen so we can see your video? Oh, great. Marina Macedo is here. Marina, you're welcome to turn on your mic and ask if you prefer. Her question is, oh, yeah, okay. She said she cannot turn on audio because her baby is babbling. Great. She's asking, can we do the testing out of a context of an examination? Or can we do it daily? Will, your sound
Your mic is muted, I guess. We can't hear you. Are you there?
Now can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. Sorry.
Now we can hear you.
So the universities will be the test center, and candidates must look for one of these centers to find the right dates, the exact dates for when the schedule is available, right? And they find the day when they are supposed to take the test.
Marina, were you talking about Apple or tests in general? Oh, tests in general. So can we do the testing out of a context of examination, or can we do it daily?
Which tests? Tests in general?
Yes. Yeah, I believe what we could do daily maybe is
okay. I think it's fair to speak. My question is, this testing is something to be done in a classroom environment, or only when I need to assess their performance, like in a test, in the moment of the test itself?
I mean,
the course examination. Huh?
The Apple.
No. The testing you were saying at the beginning of the presentation.
Well, when testing in the beginning, when I'm trying to show the difference between language testing and assessment, we see that language testing is an instrument. You know, it has to do with the creation of these instruments. Right? And when we in our classes, we can do a test can be one of the instruments of the assessment process. And
Got
you can use as many instruments as you want, right? You can use portfolios, you can use projects, you can use tests, you can use quizzes, whatever, right? But this has to do with assessment, not testing.
Okay, now I could see the difference. Okay.
And so test is the instrument. Is the test design, the creation of the instrument called test, quiz, prova.
Natalia de Andrade, has that answered your question, Marina?
Yes, it is. Pretty
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Natalia de Andrade is asking here if you're carrying out validity studies on Apple, and if so, what are you doing?
my research project's about the scale development, rating scale development. There is a scale rating scale for Appt now, but I'm trying to adapt the CFR, the Common European Framework, to our reality, right? I'm adapting the Common European Framework, which is a document used for language assessment all over the world, but we know that it covers the reality of Europe,
Mm-hmm.
although it's widely used.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to see which points, which descriptors, right? Because in the Common European Framework we have descriptors, which are valid for our reality, and how can we adapt them to the appli?
Okay. And are there so it's basically on a state of development rather than validation, I suppose.
Yes, yes.
There's another
So,
question coming from YouTube.
in fact, validation has to do with the tasks. If
Uh-huh.
the tasks cover what they are supposed to cover, if they are measured, if it's okay, we're going to collect all the information, and with this information, we're going to create the rating scales.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the validation is a prior process.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Elizabeth Mate is here on YouTube asking whether the Appli exam will have different levels.
Yes, definitely. We have defined 4 levels, right? Uh, we have 3 passing levels and 1 failing level, right? So we consider, if we compare the applet to a regular exam, for example, the Cambridge exams, we have FC, CAE, CPE. We assume that a teacher would be able to teach if he had, for example, had achieved um, the FC level. We believe this is the minimum. Although we know that what happens out there is not like this. We are not. We have teachers who know very little English, and they are in their classes teaching English. Yeah. But
So will the test have different levels? Like you apply for Appli 1 or Appli 2 and Appli 3, or will it be just one test and then out of it they will say, oh, you are at such level or above or beyond that?
it's a one test with, depending on your score, you receive a grade, A, B, or C, or fail.
Oh, great. Thank you. Any other questions from people here?
People on YouTube got any questions?
Yes, in fact, there is a question from YouTube.
Oh.
Another question. Rodrigo is asking, what is the level of the applet test compared to the Cambridge ones, if there is any correspondence?
Yeah, we have made some correspondences, and we considered the 4 levels of appli. Level 1 would correspond to the CAE or no, CPE, yeah, CPE. The second level to CAE, the third level FCE, and the 4th level, something below, is the FCE level. That would not be appropriate for a teacher.
Interesting. And how did you define this? What the appropriate level for a teacher would be? I mean, the minimum level.
This well would be an upper intermediate level of English. I don't like this operator intermediate terminology, advanced, because it has to do with grammar. Yeah. If I'm an intermediate level student. Oh, this would correspond to an intermediate level grammar, and so on. But for people who would know this, would correspond to a upper intermediate level, the minimum.
Thank you. Any other questions from people here? Marina is saying it was interesting.
Anyone? More questions?
Hmm.
We're about to wrap up. Anyone got questions? Okay, guys. So let's wrap it up. First of all, I would like to thank Will Eduardo for joining us in this wonderful adventure in discovering more about testing and evaluating. It was very insightful, very interesting, and very cool to know all these things about testing, and to know that we have to worry about our own testing and evaluate our English. And it's good to know that there are people studying that, and we have research to back us up. So, Will, once again, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Before we finish, I would like to invite everyone that is participating in this webinar to join us in a celebration for the Teachers' Day, because we all know that on October 15th is the Teachers' Day in Brazil, and we would like to prepare something very very nice for you that make this community alive together with us. So I'm sending you a link now. It's a research, a form, a Google form for you to fill it in, and if you feel like, of course. And during the month of October, we will be publishing the testimonials that we received from you. So, Will, thank you very much, and I'll see you around. Bye bye, people.
Thank you, guys.
And next month we're going to have another webinar with Luis Otávio Barros about oral correction. Don't miss it. We're going to tell you the date further on. So and do participate in the forum so we can have your voice on the BrELT.
Yes, yes. And if you have an idea for a presentation for a webinar, just let us know. We can discuss about that. And stay tuned. We have more surprise for you coming up.
Thank you, guys, and I hope
Bye-bye.
you enjoyed this webinar as much as I did. And if you want to come any kind of material, any reference, please let me know. I'll send Natalia my presentation, and you will find my email address there. Okay, that's it. Thank you.